Good evening. My name is Emily Silverman. I'm an internal medicine doctor based in San Francisco, and I'm also the creator and host of The Nocturnists, which is a medical storytelling live show and podcast. I started The Nocturnists in 2016. I was a medical resident at UCSF working 80-hour weeks and feeling really burned out and feeling like I was spending more time with computers than with patients and with people. And I was craving a space where healthcare workers could come together and tap back into the humanistic side of medicine, and where we could share our personal stories and experiences working in healthcare today. So I founded The Nocturnists, and I can't believe that was 7-8 years ago now. And it started as a couple dozen people gathered in a living room. And fast forward, we've produced over a dozen shows in the Bay Area. This is actually our third show in New York City. So we're just so excited to be continuing to make art together and to be here. So tonight, you're going to hear 5 stories, each from a different person, different place in the world. Some are doctors, some are nurses, some are patients, some are family members. And they're all going to tell stories about their experiences giving and or receiving care. And it's not just going to be the shiny aspects of it, like love and connection and togetherness, because even though there is a lot of that in caregiving, it also can be really messy and really complicated. And what I love about these 5 stories is that they don't shy away from that complexity, and they really bring the full intensity of the caregiving experience onto the stage.
Stories are a way of building bridges across seemingly insurmountable divides, and it allows us to see parts of ourselves in each other's stories. And that's why I'm really, really excited about the show tonight, because I think that will come through.
The theme for tonight is taking care, and it's a very personal theme for me. My mom died of dementia a few years ago and needed a lot of care in the last few years of her life. My dad is now a widower. He lives alone and he's aging and needs a lot of care as well. And I'm also a mother of a 2-year-old girl. So I've been doing caregiving in many different directions. And it's an experience that I think people talk about sometimes, but there's so much more that we can do to bring this topic to the fore and really explore it from all angles. And that's what I'm really excited to see this evening.
I'm Danielle Ofri, Editor-in-Chief of Bellevue Literary Review, and tonight's event is a remarkable collaboration between Bellevue Literary Review, a literary magazine, and The Nocturnists, a healthcare storytelling community and podcast. The Bellevue Literary Review is the first ever journal to explore issues of health, illness, and healing with a literary lens, using poetry, fiction, nonfiction to explore the most basic and universal of human conditions. BLR has been around now for more than 20 years. It's an award-winning journal. We're now independent and officially a full-fledged literary arts organization, publishing a journal, as well as putting on events like tonight.
You've got 5 incredible storytellers coming up with 5 very unique perspectives. We've got patients, parents, professional caregivers, and all bringing in this very diverse and beautiful tapestry of stories that talk about caregiving.
All right. Well, without further ado, I would love to introduce our first storyteller of the evening. We have Lou Chikowski, who is a 2023 NYSCA NYFA Fellow in Nonfiction Literature, and also a writer and creative director based right here in New York. So welcome to the stage, Lou.
My name is Lou Chikowski, and I'm performing a story about how my mother taught me to get doctors to fall in love with me so I would get better care. To tell this story to an audience is basically a 28-year journey of having this story be part of my shadow experience of being a person, and to tell it out loud in front of an audience. My hope it was that it will be incredibly freeing and putting a period at the end of a very long sentence. It's Thanksgiving morning in Central Florida, 1996. There's ice on the palm trees, and a Publix turkey is defrosting in the sink. Last night, my mother, Rose, fell, and she's been spending the last 5 hours begging my father and I not to call an ambulance. I can get up on my own, she keeps repeating, but she can't. My mother's voice is rough. She's unrecognizable. She doesn't sound anything like the bawdy, bodacious mom I love, the one who could have been a Borscht Belt comic if only she'd wanted to. In the fall, my mother soiled her house coat. Her stomach was so sick from all the cancer treatments. So I helped her change out of it in the middle of the night, and I gave her a crisp white sheet to cover herself with. She draped it over the top of her chest where her breasts used to be. And she looks like a statue of a Greek goddess in the atrium of the Met. I'm 22 years old at this point, and this is not at all how I saw my life going. I'm back living at home with my parents. I just got fired from my first job out of college, writing the junk mail that comes stuffed in your bank statements. And now I'm working at Circuit City doing double holiday shifts, selling portable CD players to the very same girls who made fun of me in junior high school. The thing is, I'm not just home because I'm a failure. I'm actually home because my mother is dying. I sit on the floor with my mother all night, and it's filthy. What happened was she got up to use the bathroom, and she lost her footing and screamed. And when I got to her, she was half in the bed and half out of it. And it was up to my father and I to lift her back up to safety. So with him on one side and me on the other, and with her right hand in her right arm in his hands and her left arm in my hands, we counted down together like we were working at ground control at Kennedy Space Center, just a few miles north. On 3, 2, 1, go, we say, and we lift up, and just like that, my mother's arm breaks into 2 clean pieces in my hands. She doesn't let out a sound. The chemo and the radiation had made her almost immune to extreme pain. And in my panic, I dropped her, and she landed on the floor with a thud on our turquoise shag carpet. And that's where she's been ever since. And now the sun is coming up, and no one, not even my bossy mother, can deny the fact that we are all living in a horror movie. And she finally concedes, call an ambulance already. And I do. Almost immediately, like magic, 5 men arrive at our front door, like guests arriving for Thanksgiving dinner, except these men are towering strangers in clunky work boots, all surrounding my mother, standing over her, some with their hands in their pockets, some with their eyes averted. They can't stand the scene. My mother knows how she looks to them, and this is why she didn't want to call them in the first place. One of the paramedics is asking her a series of questions off a prepared list. Ma'am, what's your age? What drugs are you taking? How did this happen exactly? There's they're professional, but professional is not what my mother wants. I mean, they're talking to her like she's in the garage and she has a check engine light on, like she's a busted sedan and they're mechanics. My mother, she wants to be more than just another patient. For her, it's really important to try to get real care because at over 300 pounds, my mother's used to being written off in pretty much every healthcare setting. Every single one of her ailments gets traced back to her fatness, from hangnails to hives and now cancer. But luckily for my mother, she has a powerful secret weapon she can deploy whenever she starts to feel this bubbling up. And that is my mother's ability to get doctors to fall in love with her. My mother has cracked the healthcare cheat code, and she wants me to have it too, because she knows she's not going to be alive for very long, and she wants to give me as many lessons as possible. Listen, Louisa, these doctors, they're having a bad day, their schedule's backed up, maybe they're having problems at home, we don't know. It's up to you to make it nice for them, tell a joke, compliment them, whatever it takes for them to see you as a person, because then you'll get better care. Here's my advice to you: become your doctor's favorite. On Thanksgiving morning, 1995, on the floor, the filthy floor, with my mother, while my father is in another room having a panic attack, I know what I have to do. And what I have to do is what my mother would normally do, but she's too sick to do it. I lean over like I'm going to tell her a secret, but I say it loud enough for everyone in the room to hear, all the paramedics. I say, "Hey, Ma, so when was the last time you were naked, alone, in a room full of guys?" The paramedics look at me, look at her, look back at me. They can't believe it. Their eyes are big as saucers. One's covering his mouth, busting out laughing. My mother, she doesn't miss a beat, and she shoots back. Not recently enough, I'll tell you that much. Immediately, the room bursts with laughter, and we are no longer separate. We're not caretakers and patients. No, we are united on the same team, in on the same joke. My mother is unleashed. She goes on, "So, have you met my beautiful, available, accomplished, gorgeous daughter, Louisa?" Pointing to me. "Perhaps you'd like to take her out on a date." This arm is in 2 pieces, for a reminder. The men laugh. They see her, and one of them gets down on the floor and makes eye contact right in her eyes, touches her hand and says, "Rose, we're going to take good care of you." The paramedics surround my mother like they're a group of teenage girls at a sleepover seance, playing light as a feather, stiff as a board, and they levitate her up onto a gurney without breaking a sweat. And she flirts with them. "You're all so strong," she says. And the ambulance pulls away. 3 months later, a week after Valentine's Day, my mother will die. And I will be still 22 years old. And I will inherit a lot from her. Her love of celebrity gossip, her penchant for poetry, and her huge empathic heart. I will also inherit her body and the tools she left me to navigate the healthcare system once I became a fat woman with a chronic illness. In fact, just Like my mother, it happens so frequently at the doctor that I'm written off because of my weight, or told that my weight is the issue of every one of my problems. And it happens so much, I'm often left wondering if maybe these doctors are right and I should just come back when I'm finally skinny. But I try not to dwell too much on all of that. And instead, I move into action like my mother taught me. And I work on becoming irresistible. At every doctor's appointment, I go on autopilot. I become a whirling dervish of sweetness and gratitude. I portray a deep interest in everyone there, even though, by definition, I am only at the doctor because of a deep, deep, deep interest in myself. This is not generosity of spirit. This is survival. I need help, and I'm going to do anything to get it. To the front desk staff, I bow. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, here's my credit card. I appreciate it. Thank you. To my doctors, I ask about their childhoods. So did you always dream of becoming a gynecologist? And I always make jokes at my own expense, of course. Oh, you mean a bagel isn't a food group? I didn't know. And it works so much, except sometimes when it doesn't, like once, not that long ago in the emergency room when the triage nurse told me that I was acting too cheerful to be having a real emergency, and I was in the waiting room for over 8 hours. Still, I use my mother's tricks a lot because they work. And they have helped me assemble a killer healthcare team. I am now believed. I'm understood. I have the personal cell phone numbers of a few of my doctors to call when I'm really in trouble, and I use them. I have graduated from being an anonymous patient in an anonymous healthcare system to being a real person with real needs that deserve to be really addressed, and I have real relationships with real people who know how to do that. And they help me navigate all the bullshit that comes with having a body, and it is a lot of bullshit. Still, whenever I use my mother's tricks, I'm wrecked with guilt. And I wonder if doing these things makes me a bad person. Like, does getting doctors to want to fall in love with me make me a genius or a fucking shitbag? A few weeks ago, I go to see my physical therapist, Sam. Sam's great. She helps me with my chronic headaches and the pains in my neck and the numbness I feel every day in my hands. And Sam knows a lot about me, and I know a lot about Sam. I know she likes to go axe throwing at this brewery nearby, and I know she makes a killer lentil soup because it always smells like garlic in her office, and it smells amazing. And on this visit, Sam says at the end of it, "Hey, Lou, do you want to know my secret dream?" And of course I say yes, because I want to know literally everybody's secret dream. And then she tells me that she's thinking about buying a building so she can expand her practice and help more people. And when she tells me this, I think, holy shit, all this intimacy and kindness and relating that I want with my doctors, maybe some of them want it with their patients too? Later that night, I get into bed and I do what I do pretty much every night when I fall asleep. I go through the very long list of crimes I've committed over the course of my entire life, real and imagined. We all do this, right? And on this night, I'm particularly haunted by this idea of Sam. I think about what she would say if she knew that our relationship, this one I've really come to rely on that is so important in my life, began with this trick my mom taught me. Like, would she like me any less? Would she want to help me any less? It's hard to know. But the truth is, this is the origin story of our relationship. Even after all this time, and I like her so much. It's the origin story of not just me and Sam. It's the origin story of so many people who helped me with my pain. And I wish my mom were still here so I could ask her about it. I picture us having lunch at one of our favorite restaurants. Maybe you've heard of it, the Olive Garden. And she'd be wearing one of her brightly colored polyester tunics and stuffing lukewarm breadsticks in her purse for later. And I would just ask her, Ma, you don't think it's bad, this thing I do, with doctors? Getting them to try to like me? And she'd smile at me with her warm brown eyes, and she would reach her hand across the table to me, and she would assure me, "Oh, Louisa, don't overthink this. In this life, we all have to do what we have to do to survive." And then she'd take a sip of her Tab soda and leave a bright red lipstick ring on the plastic of the straw. And she would lower her glasses and look at me and say one of her trademark lines, "Also, who are you kidding? You're already so lovable. You don't even have to try." Thank you very much.
All right. Our next storyteller is Roshni Shah. Roshni is a nurse, community advocate, and professor based in Chicago.
Hello, my name is Roshni Shah, and I am a nurse based in Chicago. And tonight I'm performing at the Nocturnists Taking Care event. Caretaking is more than just the physical act of, completing a task. It's also being there for the emotional and mental journey and support that it requires. And caretaking takes a toll on caretaking for yourself. So I think it's a really fine line between giving and receiving. I hope the audience feels transported to wherever my story takes them. And I hope they feel all of the emotions, laughter, sadness, frustration, and just really feel like they can resonate with that story in their own lives in some way. I pull into my driveway, windows down, music blasting Bollywood, nose dripping, but despite the cold Chicago air, I can barely keep my eyes open. All I can think about right now is going to sleep. It's as if the medications I've been giving my patients overnight in the ICU has somehow gotten into my own bloodstream. All I can hear in my skull is the sound of bed alarms and patients' cries. I am so exhausted. As I turn the car off and walk towards the door, I realize my reality is quite different. Between me and my bed lies one more nursing task. I have to give my mom a bath. I open the door, and it's utter chaos. My dad in the living room watching Fox News, shouting at my mom across the house while she's in the kitchen. The sound of Donald Trump screeching, mixing in with my mom's spiritual music, permeates the house. My mom's not quite used to using her walker yet, so she just has it kind of sitting there in the kitchen, and she uses it to pivot from the fridge to the stove and back, grabbing fresh ginger and cardamom and nutmeg for her morning cha, and grabs a handful of onions and mustard seeds, and she throws it into hot onion. And as it sputters, all these smells permeate into my nostrils. My stomach grumbles. My mom looks at me. Hi, Bitta. Welcome home. I made you breakfast. Now, I have just been really nice and patient for the past 14 hours, and I do not have it in me anymore. I've been in my head calculating nurse math. For those that don't know, nurse math is the math nurses use when we're constantly looking at our watch, calculating the best way to get the job done most efficiently to maximize our time for rest. And right now, the one task that remains is giving my mom a bath. And I have calculated, if I do this now, I can get enough sleep before my next shift. So I'm not proud, but I shout at my mom, Mom, can we take a shower now? She looks up, startled. She stares at the stove in front of her, and then she looks at my dad. I know I have to act fast. You see, growing up as the youngest in my family, I've learned all the tricks, and this is my best one. I make my face extra pathetic, my eyes extra sad, and I plead, Mom, I'm so exhausted. She looks at me, and I know I've got her. Okay, Beta, 10 minutes. I slump to the ground to play with my dog, and I pull out my phone. I have so many messages from my friends that I have to get back to. I see the first one. A friend is on her honeymoon in Italy, sending me photos of pasta and wine. Great. Another friend sends me an update that her annual bonus just wasn't what she thought it was going to be, but there's always next year. I know I should have some sympathy or something inside of me, but my exhaustion is now rage. I look around me. This was not what I had imagined for my life in my 30s. I should be coming home to my own family, taking care of my husband and kids, or at least planning a trip to Italy. I don't even know what an annual bonus is. So I respond with some likes and comments, and I look at my watch. It's been way over 10 minutes. I'm mad. I pop up. Mom! She turns the stove off, finally, pours my dad's tea and breakfast, yes, and finally makes progress as she walks towards the stairs. Okay, take me up. I look at the 20 stairs that she's pointing at. My mom just fell down these stairs and broke her hip a few weeks ago. She just got back from rehab, not even a week ago. There was no way we were making it up there. So I look at her. Mom, that's not happening. Come, I want to show you something I made. Okay, side note here. I'm a first-generation daughter of immigrants, so growing up, the way we decorated our home was all about functionality and efficiency. Our walls were plain and bare to preserve the newness of the home. We just recently got the plastic off the couches, too. That was a good bonus. But my parents didn't really believe in decorating. We had the same furniture from the 80s, and if it wasn't glued back together, we covered it up with something and made it work. I, on the other hand, am a proper millennial. I grew up inspired by Martha Stewart living, and I couldn't wait to be an adult and decorate my home. So when my mom was in rehab, I knew I had my chance. I jumped at the opportunity to decorate the downstairs bathroom, which was bare. I spent way too much time and energy picking out the perfect, plush, trendy rug. I got the beaded, matching shower curtain. Hell, I had money. I splurged on the matching towels and candles. I put hooks for her robe and gowns, and I was really proud of myself. In fact, the hole in the wall, quite literally, my most rebellious act, was putting a hole in the wall with my own artwork. So, that was awesome. As my mom hobbles over with her walker, still not quite sure how to use it, I couldn't wait to show her. I turned the light on for this big reveal, and I hear a big gasp. What did you do in here? How much did this cost? Your dad's gonna... I was so disappointed. This is not how the big reveals happen on TV. How could you be so ungrateful?
As she continues to scream at me and walk in, her walker gets stuck in the rug that I had picked out, and I realize my mom has a point. But I'm as stubborn as she is, so I'm not going to give in. I roll my eyes and tell her, Mom, just get in the shower and get undressed. She rolls her eyes right back at me as she wobbles to the bathroom. As she opens the shower curtain, she sees it. You see, I had to install one of those ugly hospital-grade plastic and metal shower chairs, and I tried my best to bedazzle it, but it didn't work. She stares at that chair and her eyes drop. I know those eyes. It's the look of when your freedom gets snatched away from you. I know my mom can't believe that this is what her life is like either. She's only 60. Something inside me softens. I realize this is not a patient. This is my mom. I walk over to the bathroom and turn on the water. And as she gets undressed, still slowly from the surgery that she just had, I see her naked body. It's still covered in bruises and scars from her previous surgeries, and I can't help but picture her like a little baby. She looks so fragile and delicate. When the water warms up, I grab it, and maybe it's because I'm not wearing gloves, but as my hands touch her back, I'm instantly transformed. I'm in the hospital as a child while my mom bathes me in the sink for days. I'm transformed back to India where my mom's hands are rubbing my head when I had pneumonia for weeks. My mom's skin is so soft. It feels like whipped silken tofu that's soaked in a syrup of rose and cardamom. In fact, as the water hits her skin, I swear, the bathroom starts to smell like her. Smells of jasmine and orange and cloves and cinnamon and smells of home. I realize this is not the ICU. For the first time in many hours, my body relaxes. I hand my mom the shower bar. She looks at me with gratitude, and something in both of us shifts. Now her conversation goes from formalities to more important topics like, who's sleeping with who at work? And by the way, are there any cute single residents that like you yet? And as I look at my mom and answer her questions, she's very nosy, I grab her loofah and her Dove body wash. I, like the efficient immigrant daughter that I am, squirt out 2 efficient squirts and start lathering her. She grabs my hand. I laugh. You see, my mom sacrifices and gives to everyone, and she has to be really savvy everywhere. But for as long as I've known her, the shower was where she gave herself the biggest indulgence, and today was no different. So I grabbed that Dove body wash and I squeezed to her satisfaction, what ended up being over half of the bottle. Literally, there is soap falling to the ground in wasteful heaps. I hide my frustration and I go with it. This is her shower. And I start lathering her. I lather her underarms and under her breasts and under her other more intimate areas. And we're no longer mother-daughter. We've become friends. In fact, now that I'm over 30, my mom thinks of me as one of her girlfriends that she can tell one of her non-veg jokes to. If you don't know what that means in our culture, it's raunchy humor. The thing is, my mom's joke telling doesn't really ever get to the punchline. So she starts one of her infamous jokes that I've heard millions of times, not fully, of course. She's about 5 words in this time, which is progress, and her head pops back, her body starts convulsing, and she makes no noise. Don't worry, don't be alarmed. You see, my head is also thrown back, my body is also convulsing, and we are now exchanging in our shared signature mom-daughter silent cackle. It's the laugh that my mom and I share that I've inherited, proudly or not. It is what it is. And as both of us clutch our stomachs hard, laughing so much from nothing, I realize I haven't checked my watch because I don't really care what time it is anymore. Thank you.
Next up, we have Shaida Kamali, who is a first-year medical student at the University of Oklahoma and also a medical laboratory scientist at the Mercy Hospital Blood Bank. Welcome, Shaida.
My name is Shaida Dusenge Kamali. I am a first-year medical student at the University of Oklahoma. I'm also a blood banker. I work in the hospital lab. I'm telling the story of taking care of my younger brother. I adopted him when I was 22 years old. But really, this story is about taking care of myself and how much I have grown in the process. I am excited and I'm nervous. I've never been on stage to share such a personal story. I'm in my new apartment on campus, and there's boxes all around me. I had to move in the middle of the school year, and in front of me is my brother's suitcase. He just arrived in Oklahoma from Kigali, Rwanda. As I open it to figure out what he brought with him, I can hear his footsteps running around. I moved because I needed a bigger apartment with one more room for him. He's gonna have a room of his own. And I adopted my brother because we recently lost our mother. When I open the suitcase, the first thing I see is these red, shiny boots. I didn't know this guy likes red like that. So I set them aside and I look for shirts, shorts, socks. I find a couple of shirts, no socks. What's really taking place in his suitcase is this big bag of peanut flour, like ground peanut flour. I take the bag, I shove it into the pantry. What am I supposed to do with that? He comes in running and he says, Shaida, we're on the 3rd floor. I can take an elevator to my room. He's very excited. When we lost our mom, he didn't have anybody else, so I adopted him. He lost a home, so for the past few months, he didn't have a home as I was trying to figure out his visa and paperwork. And now he feels like he finally has a home. He's excited. I'm not excited though, I'm really nervous. I don't know how to raise a kid. He's 10 years old, I am 22. I am a senior about to graduate college. I don't know how middle school works in the US, especially in Oklahoma. I feel like when I lost my mom, I lost the foundation of my life, and she encouraged me to study and get higher education. I got a scholarship and came to the United States. But she's gonna miss all that. She wanted me to go to medical school and be a doctor. I don't even know I can do that now. I lost the foundation of my life. I feel like I'm in the air. And now I have this child that we have to land together. I take a deep breath. I get ready for his first day of school. A friend of mine takes him because I have to go to school before him. I was doing clinicals in that year. When I see him at the end of his first day, I ask him, hey, Sean, how was your first day? Good. Did you make friends? Yes. Did you meet your teachers? Yes. I mean, he doesn't tell me any details. He still doesn't. I ask him about anything. Well, he talks about his school lunch. He says, I don't like school lunch. Okay, I say, we're gonna start packing for you. So he starts packing his own school lunches. I mean, this kid is so good. He wakes himself up early. We have a schedule of who's picking him up because I'm gone already. He never misses his alarm. He's ready at 11. He's getting himself to school and coming back. I graduate college. I take a full-time job. I work the night shift at the hospital. And we make it. Days go. I have such a supportive community. But I realize my friends move out of town. They take on new jobs. I feel stuck. This is not what I wanted to do with my life. The people I hang out with are mothers, and I am very awkward with them. I don't really know what to discuss. I don't understand football so well, and it's such a big deal in Oklahoma. And as I watch my brother grow into this brilliant young man who is in love with sports, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And when he starts driving, I teach him how to drive, and we decide we're going to be practicing every morning when I'm getting off work so he can drive himself to school and get more practice time. So one morning I get off work, I call him, I say, hey, get ready, I'm on my way. It's 7:30 a.m., 12-hour shift. I just want to go to bed. When I pull up to our apartment and as I watch him come out with everything in his hands instead of his backpack, I'm thinking we're already going to be late. I move over to the passenger seat and I turn on the radio, and the sun is just shining so bright in my face. Why am I taking somebody to school? He gets into the driver's seat and he's driving. He's such a good driver. And we turn on the radio and we're listening to the radio. That's sort of our habit because I realized if I say something, I may end up dumping all my frustration from my night shift to this poor guy who's just starting his day. So when we pull up to the last stop sign, as we're about to park the car, he sees his friends and he makes this sharp turn and hits the curb. He hits the curb so hard, I feel myself losing the air. And I'm turning red and I'm so mad, and I look at him and he says, oops. What? So he parks the car and I look at the time, it's 7:58. I can kick this guy out of my life right now. I say, get out, go to school. He doesn't realize anything happened. He just gets his bag and walks to class with his friends. And as I move into the driver's seat, I feel so alone. The childhood my brother is having is so different from mine. I'm not sure I'm raising him right because I grew up in a house that was always an open door. We had people coming in to eat. We had laughter. We had conversations. We had a lot of people who came to eat my mom's food because she was such a good cook and she loved sharing food. We had homeless kids come in. We had anybody in the neighborhood could come in and eat anytime. I don't feel like I'm giving that to my brother. The highlights of my childhood don't look like his. I don't really know what I'm doing. And at that moment, I want to ask my mom, how do I go on? What am I doing? And as I'm driving and I get to that first light on my way back to my apartment, I want to ask my mom, how did she raise us with so much love and comfort when she was grieving herself? My mom lost all her family to the genocide against Tutsis in Rwanda, but that wasn't part of my childhood. My childhood was food, people, laughter, and kindness. When I get to my apartment, I go to bed because I really need to sleep. And when I wake up, I go to the kitchen in the afternoon like I normally do, trying to figure out what to make for dinner. And when I open the pantry, I see that big bag of peanut flour is still there, many, many years later. And I remember when I was in college, my mom sent me an audio on how to make peanut curry. I've never listened to that audio ever since she passed away because hearing her voice, I feel scared. I don't know what I'll hear because we lost her so suddenly. I'm not sure what that voice will tell me. But I really, really would like to hear her right now. So I find it in my phone and I click play. And the first sound I hear is my sister Shamira saying, okay, you can talk now. She goes, well, who am I talking to? She says, Ma, just talk. And my mom launches into this chef mode. She goes, you chop the onions, you wash the carrots. And she's being humorous and she's like, she's on a TV show. And in 50 seconds, she's already told me how to make peanut curry. And she says, Murakoze, like she's on a show and the lights are out. I play the audio again, over and over. This is what I missed. So I go to the fridge, I get the onion, I get the carrots, I get the peas, and I take the pan. And as I watch the onions sizzle, like she says, I add the cumin and the garlic, but she's not telling me any of the amounts. She says, I will know when it's ready and I will know what to put in. And I make paste with the peanut flour, and as I watch it turn red and creamy, I know it's ready. By the time my brother comes home from school, I've listened to that audio way too many times. And when he comes in, he takes a shower, and I make a bowl of rice, and I put the curry on top, and we sit on the floor like we normally sit, and I'm waiting for him to take his first bite. I say, "What do you think?" He goes, "Shaida, this is my favorite food. That's why I brought a whole bag of peanut flour from home." I had never realized that. But as I watch how he's enjoying the food, and as I eat it and it tastes like my mom's curry, the love, the comfort, the courage that I've wanted so much is right there in my brother's eyes.
Our next storyteller is Anne Schroten. Anne is a mother, wife, attorney, writer, hiker, and seeker living in Chandler, Arizona. Welcome, Anne.
My name's Anne Schroten. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm an attorney, I'm a writer. I was a caregiver for my son Jack for 15 years. He was a child with a lot of medical complexity. My story's about a night in the life of caring for Jack towards the end of his life, and it's a conversation that he and I have together, and shares a little bit about the caregiving part and the connection, the special connection that we have. I'm telling the story because I think it's important. I've been given the opportunity to share the voice as a parent caregiver of a child who was extremely medically complex. I think it's a voice that's not heard often enough. It's very isolating, and this was an opportunity for me to share my story, but also share the stories of other parents, what it's like to take care of a child who's medically complex. I'm jolted awake by the alarm blaring through the baby monitor that's sitting across the room on my bedroom floor. I glance at the clock on my nightstand. The green neon numbers read 2:26 a.m. I lay there for a second, but my mind is telling me, you need to get up. But I'm so tired. But he can't breathe. You need to get up. I drag myself out of bed, fumble in the dark, trying to find my cell phone. And I hurry down the dimly lit stairs. I'm wide awake now. My heart's racing. My body's tense as I make my way to Jack's room on the first floor of our home. The room is dark. Jack is lying on the far side of the queen-size bed that dwarfs his small frame. And the glow from the bedside lamp reveals his jungle-themed room with floor-to-ceiling trees and green leafy branches hanging from the ceiling. I turn on the bedroom light and hurry to Jack's side. I silence the alarm on the pulse oximeter. He looks at me. His eyes are open wide, looking panicked and scared. His cheeks are pale. The numbers on the pulse oximeter tell me his oxygen saturations are 80 and his heart rate's 175. Both those numbers should be closer to 100. I wonder, how long has this alarm been going off? How long has he been waiting for me? What these numbers tell me is Jack is struggling to breathe, and I need to quickly figure out why. Do the secretions need to be cleared from his airway, or is this something more serious? Why can't he move air through his lungs? Jack is 15 years old. He's got sandy blonde hair, the sweetest smile. And when he's feeling well, his eyes sparkle and radiate joy. He spent the majority of the first year of his life in the hospital. He was the prince of the PICU. Doctors, nurses, even parents of other kids in the unit would stop by his bed when they needed a pick-me-up. He was about the only kid in the unit who wasn't sedated. And he greeted everyone who stopped by his bed with a smile. And that, despite the fact that he was intubated with a breathing tube down his throat. When he was 7 months old, he was discharged from the pediatric intensive care unit with a trach, a G tube, and connected to a ventilator, but with no diagnosis. We eventually received a diagnosis of congenital muscular dystrophy when he was 8, but his prognosis was still unknown. Jack is nonverbal, non-mobile, and he depends on machines and competent and around-the-clock caregiving to keep him alive. For the last 15 years, every ounce of my being has been consumed with caring for Jack, keeping him healthy, keeping him safe, and keeping him happy. But his body is starting to feel the impact of his disease, and I can see the weariness in his eyes. This last year has been a rough one. He's had kidney stones, broken bones, multiple procedures, and hospital admissions, and so much pain. And no one can really tell us why. I just want for Jack to stop hurting. I grab the suction catheter next to Jack's bed, next to Jack's pillow. I turn on a suction machine and I thread the catheter down his trach to clear his secretions. His oxygen saturations climb slightly, 81, 82. I look at Jack. His eyes are looking off into the distance as if he's trying to escape. I need to get his oxygen into the 90s. I grab the blue ambu bag hanging on the ventilator stand within arm's reach. An ambu bag is a balloon-like bag about the size of a football that's used to manually push air into Jack's lungs. I disconnect the ventilator circuits from his trach, attach the ambu bag, and give the bag slow, deep squeezes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm thinking to myself, who lives like this? Who bags their child back to life as if it's normal? How have I been doing this for 15 years? Jack's oxygen finally climbs into the 90s, and the color slowly returns to his cheeks. I feel relief. But the adrenaline rush that comes from having to quickly troubleshoot and resolve Jack's inability to breathe has completely wiped me out. And the inability to breathe has completely wiped Jack out. I lean over his bed and cradle his soft cheeks in my hands. I touch my forehead to his, and I look into his beautiful chestnut-colored eyes. And I hear him say, "Thanks, Mom. Can you stay here with me for a while?" Of course, he doesn't say it with words. Jack speaks with his eyes, his facial expressions, his body language. But it's his eyes that will grab you. They lock your gaze and they draw you in. And with a deep tenderness and knowing, they speak directly to your heart. It's a connection that can't really be explained. It can only be felt. So I turn off the bedroom light and I crawl into bed with Jack. I grab his hand, lacing my fingers through his bony and contracted fingers. And I give his hand a kiss, and I ask him, "Do you want to listen to some music, Jack?" I find my lullabies playlist on my phone, hit play, and I put the phone between our pillows. And with Jack's warm hand in mine, a calming peace fills the room as the rhythmic swooshing of the ventilator, tethering him to this world, keeps time with the music streaming from my phone. I close my eyes, hoping to get a few hours of sleep before the manic morning that I know is waiting for me. But I can't sleep. My mind wanders and my heart hurts for all that Jack has been through this last year. I open my eyes and I look over at Jack. and I see tears rolling down his cheeks. Jack's always been very sensitive to music, and it's not the first time that he's become emotional listening to a song. So I pick up my phone to see what song is playing. Fly Away. I asked Jack, "Do you want to fly away?" And as soon as I ask the question, I feel a deep heaviness in my heart because I know the answer. Yes, he wants to fly away, away from the pain and all it takes to live in his tired and broken body. And while he can't tell me what he wants, his eyes, his body, his spirit tell me he's tired and he's ready to go home. But how do I stop? After 15 years of doing, how do I just stop and accept that Jack's body is tired and broken and there's absolutely nothing we can do to fix it? What if he thinks I'm giving up on him? What if we're missing something? I'm Jack's mom. It's who I am. Who will I be without him? But as I lay there holding Jack's hand, I accept that it's not about me and what I want. And as much as it will shatter my heart and bring me to my knees to live without him, I understand what I need to do. I need to listen to Jack. I need to let him take the lead. And I need to unconditionally love him home.
Last but not least, we have Zed Jha, who is a nonfiction writer and physician at the Yakima Valley Farm Workers Clinic in Washington State. Welcome to the stage, Zed.
My name is Zed Jha. I'm a family physician in rural Washington State. I am also a nonfiction writer, so writing is part of my everyday work now. On the surface, the story is about eating ice cream. But really, it happens at a pivotal moment of my life where my parents are transitioning from my caretakers to being taken care of by me. Part of the story involves how my mother stole me out of a hospital when I was a baby, before I was about to be adopted out. And so that feels to me like my origin story. I feel is worth telling to the world. Anybody who's been a mother or has a mother, which is everyone, should know how heroic mothers can be. And I've always wanted to tell the story. It's January 2020, and I am a brand new attending doctor, driving my brand new secondhand SUV down the highway toward my brand new house in eastern Washington State. In the passenger seat sits my brand new husband, whom I've had for 5 years. In the back seat sit my parents, whom I just picked up from the Seattle airport. They're sound asleep, my car is quiet, except for their peaceful breathing and my racing heartbeat. My parents have just arrived from China to visit me. In the past 12 years I've been in the United States, we've only seen each other a handful of times. And this time, looking through the backup mirror, my parents look a lot older than last time I saw them. My mom's hair is thinning, so she's wearing a perm to hide it. And the lines on my dad's forehead are carved a lot deeper than last time I saw him. And I am consumed by guilt. You see, in the Chinese culture, out of all the virtues, being good to your parents comes first. And I had not been a good daughter. I am their only child and left home when I was 20 to pursue a medical career on the other side of the world, draining all of their savings along the way. But this time, things are different. I'm no longer that starving medical student or resident, and I have a plan to make it up for my parents. At my house, I prepared a whole fridge of foods they've never tried before. I bought them new sheets, a new comforter, a new rice cooker, and this time actually brand new, not secondhand. And with this plan comes this declaration. I am the product of my parents' hard work and sacrifice, and I am worth it. But more importantly, from now on, I will be taking care of them. And what's the first step to my master plan? Stopping at Baskin-Robbins for ice cream. I glanced at the GPS. We're only a minute away from the exact store I picked out. My palms are starting to get sweaty, my heart rate is elevating, and I'm starting to hyperventilate. By the time I see that big Baskin-Robbins logo, I fully met sepsis criteria. I turn sharply into the parking lot and slam into a parking spot right outside the store. Then I turn to the back seat and say, "Mom, Dad, want some ice cream?" Then I see the look on my mom's face. Like a reflex, I close my eyes and clench my teeth like I'm getting ready for a slap in the face. "No, we do not want ice cream," my mom says. And I feel myself sinking into the seat, deflating into a small child. Now, before you think the story is brought to you by Baskin-Robbins, let me just take you back 32 years ago, the day when I was born. The doctor who delivered me misdiagnosed me with brain damage at birth. And my mother, who didn't even finish middle school, didn't understand what that meant. "That means she'll be stupid," the doctor explained to her. In the one-child policy era in China, the only child was not just a child, but also the hopes and dreams of the entire family. And mine was about to get crushed. The doctors recommended I be put up for adoption, and my mother tried to protest, but it was her words against the patriarchy. So a few weeks after giving birth, my mother found herself standing in front of a lockdown adoption facility where her baby girl was kept among other brain-damaged kids, waiting to be taken away. Now, if what happens next were to be made into a kung fu movie, my mother would be played by the Oscar-winning Michelle Yeoh, and it's gonna look like this. She arrives after dark in front of the evil castle, aka the hospital, dressed all in black. Then like a bird, she flies up from the ground, tapping her toes a few times along the walls as she ascends and lands inside the evil castle without making a single sound. Then she takes out her sword and fights her way through the villains, aka the doctors, and makes her way to her baby girl. But the reality was a lot less pretty. Just a few weeks postpartum, my mother was probably still bleeding from her womb. And now, she's bleeding from her heart too. Because after climbing over the walls of the hospital, she discovered the room where they kept me was locked, so she couldn't get in to steal me out. But according to my mother, among all the babies in the adoption unit, I was the only one who cried when I heard her footsteps. So the next morning, my mother returned to the hospital by herself and signed me out against medical advice. In my imagination, after signing those papers, when she threw that pen back at the doctors, it sounded exactly like a sword pushed back to its scabbard. My mother told everyone I was not stupid because stupid babies couldn't recognize their mother's footsteps. But no one believed her. Instead, people gossiped. She'll never be able to understand mathematics. She won't make it to college. And she can't take care of her parents. And that is how I ended up at age 15 on the back seat of my mother's secondhand bicycle, weekend after weekend. My mother is pedaling fast and furious to take me to the weekend private classes of physics, chemistry, and mathematics. The gritty metal seat of the bike makes the ride really uncomfortable, so I hug my mom's waist tightly for stability. Everything looks gray in Beijing due to air pollution, except for the Baskin-Robbins we pass by every week. The big pink circle with the number 31 in it is like the only color I see. Not knowing how to pronounce Baskin-Robbins, my mother and I called it the American 31 flavor ice cream. And this is when she makes her empty promise to me every single weekend. Okay, honey, one day we'll stop by for ice cream, okay? 3 scoops, whatever flavor you like. I promise. But the private weekend classes are expensive. Before I can even enter the classrooms, I hand over a stash of cash to the teachers. And this is how I know, at the end of the week, we do not have any money left for ice cream. Plus, other than chocolate and vanilla, how many more ice cream flavors can there really be? Now, fast forward 18 years, back in Washington State. My mother is now sitting at the back of my secondhand SUV, rejecting my offer to take us to have the ice cream of our dreams, ruining the very first step to my master plan. If I let her defeat me now, what's going to happen when we get home? And if she won't let me take care of her, then all of our hard work trying to prove those gossips wrong, and all of the years we spent apart, and all the monies I drained, would totally be wasted. I can't let that happen. But luckily for everyone, I've been to the morning market with my mother in China enough times. I know exactly how to bargain with the Chinese woman without arguing. So I turn to her and I say, okay, whatever, suit yourself. I want some ice cream. So I hop off the car and I start walking to the ice cream shop by myself. Then behind me, I hear my dad's footsteps shuffling. Then my mother sighs and she comes off the car and slams the door. Inside the ice cream shop, there is a young girl with a bored teenager look on her face. Hello, I would like to get 3 scoops of ice cream in a cone, please. I've never actually been to a Baskin-Robbins, but I need to act like I come here all the time. Okay, what kind of cone, she says. Oh, that bigger one? Okay, waffle cone then, what flavors? Flavors, okay, it's gonna be chocolate, vanilla, and that one over there. Then my dad comes in, and right away he leans forward to study all the different chocolate flavors there were. Then my mother comes in, and her mouth just drops open. Then she starts to count the flavors. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, don't let my mother catch you having fewer flavors than you advertised, because she will be asking you for a discount, okay? 22, 23, 24. And her eyes get wider as the numbers grow. Then she looks over to my dad, who looks like he might fall into the ice cream buckets if he got any closer to them. My mother makes this hissing sound whenever she's displeased, and it sounds weirdly dismissive, like this. So she turns to my dad and says, and that translates into, stop acting like you want ice cream. Then she turns to me and says, 这些也太贵了吧，你会不会省点钱？有那些钱去别的地方买一整顿饭就可以了。不要，不要，坚决不要。And as she gets more and more passionate about scolding me, her voice gets louder. She scolds me for my terrible habit of wasting money, because with that kind of money, I could have gone somewhere else and gotten a whole meal. And how dare I, a 32-year-old professional woman, a doctor, spend $10 on ice cream to make her mother happy? Now imagine if you were the poor ice cream girl in the shop. 1 minute, your biggest problem was boredom. Then comes in this Asian woman with a big perm. Then she starts to hiss and yell and terrorize all these other Asian people in your store. So she turns over to Matthew for help, my husband, who's the only other non-Chinese person in the room. And Matthew gestures, don't look at me, I don't know what's going on. So suddenly, the room becomes quiet, and everyone turns to look at me. It feels like there are beams of light coming out of everybody's eyes, and they form this single cone of spotlight that lands perfectly on me. Ladies and gentlemen, I am now the hero in this Kung Fu movie. And no matter how much I'm bleeding inside, I need to act like I'm effortless on the outside. So I roll up my sleeves, and I speak to the ice cream girl. Okay, we'll take some chocolate almonds, world-class chocolate and peanut butter in a dipped waffle cone for him. For her, we get some cotton candy, nutty coconut, winter white chocolate, also in a dipped waffle cone, please and thank you. And under my rapid fire, the ice cream girl blinks herself awake and says, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. Any toppings? I'm glad you asked. We'll take some sprinkles, M&Ms, gummy worms, and girl, if you have some sunshine and rainbow and unicorn eyelashes, I will take some of those too. I need you to make these 2 ice creams look ridiculous. Okay? Okay. And let me tell you, she does not disappoint me. In a few minutes, she turns around and hands over these 2 giant dipped cone ice creams with the whole world balanced on them, shouldering endless possibilities. By the time I'm done paying for these 2 ice creams, half of my deathbed chocolate's already gone. Then I hear my mother whisper behind me, "Wow, American 31 flavor ice cream." So I turn to look at her, and she's taking a selfie with the ice cream. Taking a selfie with the ice cream like a tourist in front of the Statue of Liberty. Thank you.
That is our show. We want to thank you for coming. We want to thank Kwame for the amazing music.
So without further ado, I'll invite Danielle to come.
Wow, guys, this was amazing, and I hope you found it as inspiring as I did. It was really just an incredible evening, and they say that medicine is all about stories, and I think we saw that tonight, both inside the hospital, the doctor's office, and in each person's individual worlds. And so thank you to our fabulous storytellers for bringing us into their worlds, and I think we all feel a bit more taken care of at this point. We couldn't have asked for a more invigorating and inspiring audience. So please, storytellers, please come on up for one more bow. Kwame, please come take a bow. Thank you all. We'll see you at the next events. Have a great night.